Hey there, soccer fans! Welcome back to Pundit Habibi, the podcast where we break down the beautiful game with all the passion, banter, and analysis you didn't know you needed. It's your boy, your Habibi, the American soccer junkie here, ready to break down what was honestly one of the most electrifying Premier League Saturdays in recent memory. November 30th, 2024, served up everything: goals galore, jaw-dropping moments, and a little sprinkle of history to top it off. Seriously, if you're not glued to this league, what are you even doing with your weekends? Alright, let's get into it because there's so much to unpack. Okay, first up in the headlines. Arsenal! They rolled into the London Stadium and absolutely wrecked West Ham, 5-2. This wasn't just a win, this was a statement. I mean, they're sitting just 6 points behind Liverpool now, and if they keep playing like this, who's to say they can't chase the title? Let's break it down! Gabriel Mondelez kicked things off with a bullet header. Love seeing a center back get in on the action like that. Then it was Trossard, Odegaard, Havertz. Yes, Kai Havertz! That man finally showed up and decided to remind everyone why Arsenal splashed the cash for him. But let's not sleep on West Ham. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, yeah, the right back, bags a goal, and Emerson's free kick was pure art. Absolute postcard finish. And, of course, Bukayo Saka stepped up with the ice-cold penalty. The kid's class, plain and simple. West Ham tried to claw their way back, but Arsenal just kept their foot on the gas. Honestly, this Arsenal team looks so balanced right now. The depth is there, the creativity's flowing, and Odegaard is out here orchestrating like he's playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Yo, can we give a massive shout out to Justin Kluivert at Bournemouth? The man made history, becoming the first player to score a hat-trick of penalties in a single Premier League game. 3 penalties, 3 ice-cold finishes, against Wolves, no less. Bournemouth walks away with a 4-2 win, and Kluivert's the name on everyone's lips. Now, I know people will say, oh, they were just penalties. But listen, the pressure that comes with taking even one penalty is insane. To step up 3 times and deliver? That's mental fortitude. Absolute legend-making stuff. Over at the Brentford Community Stadium, Kevin Schade was putting on a show. This guy drops a hat-trick like it's nothing, and Leicester had 0 answers. Brentford's attack was relentless, and Schade? He's got pace, power, and that killer instinct in front of goal. Leicester, on the other hand, well, they're spiraling. Steve Cooper's exit hasn't exactly sparked a turnaround, and they're looking like a team in serious trouble. Crystal Palace and Newcastle served up some last-minute chaos. It's 1-0 Newcastle heading into stoppage time, and then Jean-Philippe Mateta pops up with a beautiful header to snatch a point. Selhurst Park erupted, and honestly, you've gotta love that about this league. No lead is safe, especially in the dying minutes. Newcastle fans will be gutted, though. Dropping 2 points like that could sting later in the race for Europe. And finally, a quick-fire recap of the rest. Nottingham Forest 1-0 Ipswich Town. Forest grind out a scrappy win. 1 goal did the trick, but hey, 3 points are 3 points. Brighton 1-1 Southampton. Brighton slip up, but credit to Southampton for fighting back. They're showing they're no pushovers. Alrighty my Habibi gang, let's break things down, starting with Wolves versus Bournemouth. If you missed this one, let me tell you, you missed chaos. And not just your run-of-the-mill Premier League chaos. I'm talking record-breaking, headline-grabbing, what on earth did I just watch type of chaos. Let's start with the man of the moment, Justin Kluivert. My guy didn't just show up, he put on a clinic from 12 yards out. 3 penalties. 3! All cool as you like. This dude made Premier League history as the first player ever to score a hat-trick of penalties in a single game. That's not just skill, that's nerves of steel. The first penalty came before most fans even found their seats. We're talking 56 seconds in. Totti fouls Evanilson, and Kluivert steps up, slots it away, and sets the tone for the wild ride ahead. The second? Classic VAR drama. Jose Sa caught Evanilson after a poor touch, and after a good OL review, boom, penalty number 2. By the time the third penalty rolled around, Sa looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him up. But Kluivert? Stone cold, lethal. Honestly, this wasn't just a great performance, it was legendary. The guy was calm, calculated, and absolutely clutch. I wouldn't be surprised if kids in Bournemouth are pretending to take penalties in their backyards today, yelling, Kluivert, before they kick. Now, let's talk about Wolves because, wow, what a meltdown. They've had a bit of a resurgence lately, back-to-back wins against Southampton and Fulham, but this loss? It's a dagger. And it wasn't just the defeat, it was the way they lost. Jose Sa had an absolute nightmare. 2 of those penalties were on him, and it's hard to ignore the drama at halftime when he tried to confront the fans. I get it, emotions run high, but that's not the move, man. Stewards had to step in, and fans were escorted out. It's ugly scenes like this that make you wonder how much patience Wolves supporters have left for Gary O'Neill. The chance of your getting sacked in the morning weren't exactly subtle. I mean, can you blame them? Wolves looked shaky at the back, unconvincing in attack, and, honestly, just lost out there. Let's rewind to the start of the game because it was absolute mayhem. 4 goals in the first 18 minutes? That's the kind of energy you want on a Saturday. Bournemouth struck first with that early penalty, but Wolves fired right back with Jorgen Strand Larsen's bullet header. Fair play to him, it was a beauty. But Bournemouth weren't done. Milos Kerkez smashes one into the roof of the net, and suddenly, it's 2-1. By the time Kluivert bagged his second penalty, you could feel the wheels starting to come off for Wolves. Wolves did show a bit of fight in the second half. Strand Larsen grabbed his second goal, a clinical finish that gave the home fans a glimmer of hope. But then came the final dagger. Craig Dawson plays a hospital pass to Sa, who takes out Evanilson. Penalty number 3. At this point, you could practically hear the groans from the Molineux faithful. And Kluivert? He buried it. Of course, he did. The man was unstoppable. So what does this mean for both teams? For Bournemouth, this win solidifies their spot in mid-table, and honestly, they're punching above their weight right now. They're 11th with 5 wins from 13 games. That's solid for a team many had pegged for relegation battles. And with Kluivert finding his rhythm, they're looking sharp. Wolves, on the other hand, are in trouble. The pressure on Gary O'Neill is mounting, and the fans are running out of patience. The defensive issues are glaring, and the team seems to crumble under pressure. Something's got to give, and soon. Look, this match was everything we love about the Premier League: drama, records, and a healthy dose of VAR controversy. Kluivert was the hero, Sa was the villain, and Wolves left with more questions than answers. For neutrals, it was pure entertainment. For Wolves fans, probably a bit of a nightmare. Next up, Brentford vs Leicester City. If there was ever a masterclass in how to dominate a game at home, Brentford just gave us one. A 4-1 thrashing of Leicester, and trust me, the scoreline doesn't even do justice to how commanding Brentford were. Let's talk about the man of the hour, Kevin Schade. What a performance! A hat-trick from the German, and every single goal oozed class. Here's a guy who came into this match with just 2 goals in his last 41 Premier League appearances. Let that sink in. And then he turns up and absolutely lights up the GTEC Stadium with a stunning display. His movement, his finishing, his awareness, it was like everything clicked for him in this game. That first goal at the back post? Beautiful positioning. The second, after a perfectly timed pass from Mikkel Damsgaard, was clinical. And the third? Man, that run between Faze and Justin was chef's kiss. He looked like a striker who's been bagging goals every week, not someone who's struggled for form. Thomas Frank, Brentford's manager, summed it up perfectly: the shining star today was Schade. And honestly, if he can keep this up, Brentford's attack is going to cause all sorts of problems for teams this season. But Brentford were just relentless. Leicester couldn't cope with the pace, the creativity, or the pressing. Brian Bumo and Jon Wissa were everywhere, stretching the defense, creating space, and making life miserable for Leicester's backline. And Damsgaard? Absolute magic! Those passes for Shade's goals were inch-perfect. It's a testament to Thomas Frank's tactical genius that Brentford have adapted so well without Ivan Toney. Let's not forget, they're sitting just 2 points off the top 4. The way they're playing, especially at home, it's hard to believe this is the same team that many thought might struggle this season. Now, let's turn to Leicester. Oh boy, where do we start? This team is in freefall. 1 point above the relegation zone, 27 goals conceded, the second most in the league. It's a mess. And while interim manager Ben Dawson tried to mix things up with a new formation, it didn't work. At all. The back three? Overloaded. The midfield? Outplayed. The attack? Non-existent, aside from that brief moment of hope when Jamie Vardy set up Facundo Buonanotte for the opener. But after that, Leicester just crumbled. You could see the frustration on the faces of the players and the fans. The chance against the director of football, the players heading straight down the tunnel at full time, it's not a happy camp. And Ruud van Nistelrooy, who is watching from the stands, has a massive job on his hands. Let's be real, Van Nistelrooy's first session with this squad is going to be more about damage control than anything else. There are issues all over the pitch, from the defensive frailties to the lack of leadership. But hey, if anyone knows how to inspire a team and score goals, it's Ruud. The question is, can he fix this mess fast enough to avoid a relegation scrap? The fans clearly want to believe in him. The Dutch flag in the away end was a nice touch, but it's going to take more than optimism to turn things around. Let's circle back to Brentford for a second because this team deserves more attention. 6 wins in 7 home games? That's not just a fluke. That's consistency. And with players like Schade, Bumo, and Damsgaard hitting their stride, they're not just looking to stay mid-table, they're pushing for European football. I know, it's early days. But if they keep playing like this, they're going to be a problem for a lot of the so-called big teams. This game was everything we love about the Premier League. On one side, you had Brentford playing like a well-oiled machine, full of confidence and flair. On the other, you had Leicester, a team in turmoil, desperately searching for answers. For Brentford, it's all smiles and momentum heading into the next round of fixtures. For Leicester, it's time to buckle up because Van Nistelrooy has one heck of a mountain to climb. The next match we're breaking down is the late drama that happened at Selhurst Park, where Crystal Palace snatched a 1-1 draw against Newcastle United in stoppage time. This one had everything you'd want from a Premier League clash: missed chances, unexpected heroes, and a last-second twist. Let's start with that dramatic equalizer from Daniel Munoz. Palace was staring at another tough loss after an unlucky own goal by Mark Guéhi. The fans were holding their breath, the clock was ticking down, and then, boom! Munoz rises to meet Guéhi's cross and powers the header into the back of the net. Selhurst Park erupted, and manager Oliver Glasner went full Mourinho with his celebration, sprinting down the touchline. Honestly, I love seeing that kind of passion. You could tell how much this meant to him and his team. Glasner described it perfectly: the players left their hearts on the pitch. And it showed! Palace may not have been clinical in front of goal, but their fight and determination were undeniable. But let's be real, Palace made life a lot harder for themselves. Munoz, the eventual hero, could have been the villain of the day. He missed an absolute sitter in the first half, like one of those chances you'll see on blooper reels. And Eberechi, who usually uses class, wasn't at his best. That poor touch in the first half when he was set up by Ismaila Sarr? Painful to watch. Speaking of Sarr, he was lively but just couldn't get past Nick Pope. That's credit to Pope, by the way. Newcastle's keeper was incredible under pressure, making crucial saves to keep his team in the game. If Newcastle had walked away with 3 points, a lot of that would have been down to Pope. For Newcastle, this has to feel like 2 points dropped. Eddie Howe's side looked disjointed, especially after Alexander Isak went off injured in the first half. Losing your main striker like that? It's a big blow. Isaac's replacement, Harvey Barnes, tried to make an impact, but it's clear Newcastle lacked a cutting edge up front. Their goal came in the most bizarre way, with Mark Gahey accidentally turning Anthony Gordon's cross into his own net. It was one of those moments where you just shake your head and think, football can be so cruel sometimes. Now, let's talk about the officiating for a second. Palace had some strong penalty shouts, especially when Will Hughes' shot seemed to strike Fabian Schär's arm. VAR said no, but I've seen those given plenty of times. And trust me, the Selhurst Park crowd let the ref know exactly how they felt about it. For Palace, this point is massive. It lifts them out of the bottom three and gives them a little breathing room. They're not out of the woods yet, but performances like this show they've got the fight to stay up. If Munoz can start converting more chances and Ease gets back to his best, they'll be in a much better place. As for Newcastle, this was another frustrating outing. It feels like their season has been all over the place, big wins one week, flat performances the next. Consistency has been their Achilles heel, and with Isaac potentially sidelined, Howe has some serious problems to solve. This game reminded us why the Premier League is so special. It wasn't the prettiest match, but it had that raw, edge-of-your-seat drama that keeps us all coming back. Palace fought till the very end, and Newcastle will be kicking themselves for not closing it out. Now, let's talk about the gritty and narrow 1-0 victory for Nottingham Forest over Ipswich Town. This game wasn't flashy, but it was a massive 3 points for Forest, and it showed why they're turning into one of the most stubborn sides in the league under Nuno Espirito Santo. Let's start with Chris Wood. 9 goals this season, can we talk about that for a second? This guy has gone from being a bench warmer under Steve Cooper to tying Brian Roy as Forest's all-time top Premier League scorer. And he did it in typical Chris Wood style, calm, collected, and lethal from the penalty spot. That's what I love about Wood. He's not flashy, he's not going to dominate the highlight reels, but he gets the job done. When you're in a tight, scrappy game like this, you need a guy like him to step up and deliver. And he did, smashing that penalty straight down the middle. Ice in his veins. Now, let's talk about Nuno. When he came in, Forest was looking like a relegation candidate. Fast forward less than a year, and they're sitting 6th in the league. 6th? That's wild. He made 5 changes after the loss to Arsenal, and it worked. Jota Silva was a revelation in his first Premier League start. The guy brought so much energy, winning a corner in the first 30 seconds and even drawing the penalty that would convert it. Sure, the way he went down was a little dramatic, but hey, you've got to sell it, right? Nuno's been brilliant at making this team resilient. They might not dominate possession or play champagne football, but they grind out results. And honestly, in the Premier League, that's a recipe for survival and even success. Ipswich made this a messy game. They slowed things down every chance they got, using stoppages and delaying tactics to disrupt Forest's rhythm. And credit where it's due, it almost worked. Cameron Burgess came close with that flicked header, and Ola Aina's goal line clearance was massive. Ipswich could have easily taken the lead there, and it might have been a very different game. But their attack lacked bite, and Liam Delap, who's been hyped up as a big talent, was kept in check all afternoon by Nikola Milinkovic and Murillo. Forest's defense deserves a lot of credit for staying organized and calm under pressure. Speaking of big performances, Ari Janet Muric in goal for Ipswich was outstanding. That save to tip Murillo's header onto the bar? Unreal! And let's not forget him palming away Elliot Anderson's audacious corner attempt. But set pieces were a nightmare for Ipswich. Forest looked dangerous every time they swung a ball into the box. It's something Ipswich will need to fix if they want to climb out of the bottom 3 because, right now, they're just inviting pressure. This win was huge for Forest. After back-to-back losses, they needed a response, and they got it. Sitting 6th in the table isn't just about the points, it's about the belief it brings. You can see the players buying into Nuno's system. They're organized, disciplined, and everyone knows their role. Chris Wood's resurgence is a great story, but don't sleep on players like Hoda and Murillo, who are quietly becoming key figures in this squad. If Forest can keep this momentum, who knows? They might even dream of European football. As for Ipswich, it's looking rough. They're in the bottom three, and while they showed fight, they just don't seem to have the quality to compete at this level right now. Kieran McKenna has his work cut out, especially with the January window approaching. Reinforcements are a must if they're going to stay up. This was a scrappy, hard-fought game, but it had its moments. Forest got the job done, Ipswich showed why they're struggling, and Chris Wood continued to prove why he's Mr. Reliable for Nuno's side. Finally, we're getting into this fiery Friday, January 1st draw between Brighton and Southampton. This one had a little bit of everything: goals, VAR drama, teenage brilliance, and a sideline spat. Buckle up, because there's a lot to unpack here. Brighton had the chance to go second in the table, and while they technically got there with the draw, it feels more like a missed opportunity. They dominated the first half, and Kaoru Maitoma's header was the perfect reward for their relentless pressure. Maitoma, man. This guy is so good at finding space, even when the opposition parks the bus. But here's the thing, Brighton should have been out of sight by halftime. Georgino Rutter hit the post, they had Southampton on the ropes, and they just couldn't land the knockout blow. That lack of ruthlessness is starting to become a pattern with Brighton, and it cost them again. Let's give some love to Southampton, though, because this was a gutsy performance. Tyler Dibbling, take a bow! This teenager was electric. He came off the bench and completely changed the game. His dribbling, his vision, and his ability to shrug off challenges, this kid looks like a star in the making. That run to set up Adam Armstrong? Pure class. And then he had the composure to find Flynn Downs for the equalizer. Southampton hasn't had much to cheer about this season, but Dibbling is a huge bright spot. Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room, VAR. Cameron Archer thought he'd scored the winner for Southampton, but the goal was ruled out for offside. And look, I get why the decision was made. The rules are the rules. But was Adam Armstrong really interfering with play? I'm not so sure. This is where the frustration with VAR comes in. It's supposed to eliminate doubt, but all it seems to do is create more questions. Russell Martin had every right to be upset. That call could have been the difference between 1 point and 3, and for a team fighting to stay up, that's massive. And then we had the sideline drama. Brighton's Fabian Hürzeler and Southampton's Russell Martin were going at it, with Hürzeler picking up a yellow card that means he's banned for the next game. I get it, these are two passionate managers fighting for different things. But Hürzeler needs to keep his cool. You can't be in the referee's ear all game and then expect things to go your way. Respect goes both ways, and this back and forth didn't do either manager any favors. One thing I love about Brighton, though, is their ability to churn out young talent. Yassine Ayari was fantastic in midfield. He's another gem in their seemingly endless supply of young stars. This team knows how to develop players, and it's a big reason why they're competing at the top of the table. But they need to figure out how to turn dominance into wins. If they want to stay in the race for a top 4 spot, they can't afford to drop points like this, especially at home. For Southampton, this draw is massive. It's their first away point of the season, and while they're still in the relegation zone, this could be a turning point. Russell Martin has a young squad, and performances like this will give them belief. The big question is whether they can build on it. They've got to start turning draws into wins, especially against teams around them in the table. This was a game of two halves. Brighton dominated early but couldn't finish, and Southampton fought back with heart and a little magic from their young star. VAR stole the spotlight, but there's a lot both teams can take away from this one. Finally, I saved you the best one for last. We are ending this episode with Arsenal, who absolutely dismantled West Ham in a 5-1 masterclass. Okay, let's talk about that first half. 5 goals before halftime. 5! That's not a soccer match, that's a highlight reel on fast forward. Arsenal were cooking, and Mikel Arteta's set-piece wizardry deserves all the credit. That first goal? Straight out of the playbook. Bukayo Saka fakes, everyone storms the box, and Gabriel Magalhaes heads it home. I love how Arsenal are treating corners like NFL plays. It's innovative, it's chaotic, and it's clearly effective. That's their 20th goal from a corner since last season. Shout out to Nicolas Jover, their set-piece coach. He's earning his paycheck. And can we talk about the chemistry? Saka, Odegaard, Trossard, and even Havertz were in sync. Trossard's tap-in was such a smooth team goal, and it looked like they were having fun out there. Arsenal's movement was so sharp that West Ham couldn't keep up. Now, for West Ham, yikes! That first half was painful if you're a Hammers fan. I get that they'd had some tough fixtures lately, but this was a meltdown. The penalty they gave away for Saka's goal was just sloppy. Emerson and Paqueta tripping over themselves? That's Sunday League stuff. By the time Havertz made it 4-0, the stadium started to empty. You know it's bad when fans are choosing the concession stand over watching the game. And that fifth goal before halftime? A penalty for Fabianski punching Gabriel? It's rare, but it was the right call. At that point, it felt like Arsenal were toying with them. Now, as good as Arsenal were, let's not ignore the elephant in the room, injuries. Saka had a scare, Odegaard had a scare, and Gabriel didn't even come out for the second half. These are Arsenal's key players, and their title hopes depend on keeping them healthy. Look, we've seen what happens when Arsenal lose players like Odegaard. He's their creative heartbeat, and they look lost without him. Arteta must be sweating every knock and limp because the margins are so tight at the top. Julen Lopetegui is back in the hot seat after this one. West Ham fans were already questioning his tactics, and this result won't help. Sure, beating Newcastle bought him some time, but this performance? It was a step backward. I get that he's trying to implement his style, but there's no excuse for a team this experienced to fall apart like that in the first half. The Hammers have grit, they're known for it, but it was missing for most of this game. Let's end on a positive note for Arsenal fans, Ethan Nwaneri. The teenager got some minutes in the second half, and while the game was already over, it's always exciting to see young talent getting a shot. Arsenal's academy has been churning out gems lately, and Nwaneri looks like he could be the next big thing. So, what does this win mean for Arsenal? They moved to second, and they're keeping the pressure on Liverpool and Manchester City. But this game was more than just 3 points, it was a statement. Arsenal are firing on all cylinders, but they'll need to stay healthy if they want to keep pace in this crazy title race. As for West Ham, Lopetegui needs a reset, fast. The fans are restless, and if they don't turn things around soon, he might not be around much longer. Now here's my final thoughts. What a day, right? Man, this was peak Premier League entertainment. Arsenal looking like title contenders, Kluivert making history, Schade shining, and late-game drama all over the place. It's days like this that remind you why this league is the best in the world. Let's talk about Kluivert again because, seriously, this is the type of performance that turns a player into a cult hero. Imagine being a Bournemouth fan today, you're buzzing. On the flip side, Wolves must be rethinking their defensive strategy because, yikes, conceding 3 penalties? That's a mess. And what about Brentford? Kevin Schade is turning heads now. If he keeps this form up, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the bigger clubs sniffing around. January transfer window drama, anyone? As for Newcastle, they've got to figure out how to close out games. Dropping points like this will come back to bite them, especially in such a tight race for Europe. Palace, though, they're like that friend who shows up late but steals the show. They never give up, and you've got to respect it. But here's the kicker, with December packed with fixtures, this is just the beginning. Who's gonna hold their nerve through the chaos? Can Liverpool maintain their lead at the top? Will Arsenal keep the pressure on? And seriously, what's next for Leicester? Tune in tomorrow because we're going to break down what this week means for the table and a wild recap of Sunday's fixtures and, of course, answer your burning fan questions. Who's getting sacked next? Which players are on fire? And are Leicester in serious trouble? Spoiler alert, yes, they are. And don't go anywhere else, cause we're just getting started. Pundit Habibi is here to keep you entertained, informed, and maybe even laughing a bit. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to join the Habibi gang.